Hi, I'm Julie Fei-Fan Balzer, and today I'm going to show you how to make your very own template from a drawing in order to create a region embossed card. It's super easy. The first step is to draw your design. Your artwork doesn't need to be a masterwork. However, everything needs to be closed. It's best to draw with a thick, heavy pen of some kind, and you want to keep the parts separate like a stencil. I'm going to place my drawing into my scanning mat, open the dust cover on the ScanNCut, and load it into the machine. From the home screen, I'm going to choose Scan, and then Scan to Cut Data, and I'm going to keep it in grayscale mode and press Start. I want to choose the first option, which is an outline scan, because I only want to capture the outline, and I want to drag these red arrows in so that I'm getting the cleanest possible scan and not catching the edge of the paper or anything like that. Everywhere there's a dark line is where it's going to cut out. So it looks good to me, so I'm going to hit Preview and Save, and now save it into the machine. Now I keep saying cut, but it will emboss or cut whatever I would like. Now I'm going to say OK, and we are ready to hit the home button. Don't be scared, it's okay to delete all of your patterns. Say OK, and now let's go find that pattern. So pattern, saved data, we saved it in the machine. I know it's the last thing that I saved, so there it is, looks great. So now is a chance that I can edit it out. And if there's anything I want to get rid of, move, adjust, or I can simply select all the parts, okay, and let's group them, because this is a little bit large for my region embossing, so I want to bring it down a little bit in size. So I'd like to bring the overall design to just around, you can see that's about 5 inches, maybe 5 1/4, something exciting. It's not completely square, but if I wanted to make it square, I certainly could do that. So this is an aspect ratio button. If I click it, now I can move just the width. And now, which is perfect for a card, my design is now a square. It's completely 5.25 by 5.25, okay? And if I want, I can zoom in, and I can zoom in a lot so I can get an even better look at everything that's happening here. It looks just like the drawing, which is pretty darn cool. So now I'm going to say OK, OK again. This is the toolbox, and this is where the region embossing is. For more information on region embossing from the beginning, please watch my video on region embossing. But I'm going to click on that box, and it's going to ask me line emboss, region emboss. We want to region emboss. And the first step is to create the template. Now, all the instructions are going to be here for you. So it shows you're going to create the template as shown in the figure, and you can see this is 1 out of 10 instructions. So we're going to hit next. So we're going to scan the material to be embossed. So that's the next thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to grab a mat and scan in some material. I'm unloading the scanning mat, and in its place, I am putting in a regular cutting mat, which has this piece of paper on it, which I'm going to emboss. Now, I've cut this piece of paper to 5.5 by 5.5 because my design is 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. So let's follow the rest of the instructions now. So page 2 of this says, after the machine is set up, press the Start Stop button. Frame the image of the material. Well, I can do that. That's not hard at all. And again, like, you don't even, I hate to say this, you don't even need to watch this video because the instructions are right there for you. So I'm going to say, okay. Determine the position of the patterns. So this is when you're going to drag the pattern. And this is really just to make sure that it's going to fit in there. Now, this editing function is here for you so that if you want, 1, you can zoom in, which I definitely want to do. But 2, you can go ahead and edit anything that doesn't seem quite right. I'm just going to nudge that over a teeny bit. Looks like it's falling off at the bottom, so I'm going to just bring it up a little bit, take another look, maybe one little more nudge up and over. And then let's take a look. Looks beautiful. So I'm going to say okay. And again, I could change or edit anything I wanted, but if I'm okay, I'll say okay one more time and say okay again. So now it says exceeds the maximum template size which has been created. So we're going to go ahead and change the size then. It thinks it's too close, so we're going to bring it in even more. So we finally got it small enough, and now it's going to say that we need to create the template as shown on the left, but you don't have to just do it. It's going to take you through the instructions. So I'll say okay. Unload the mat and remove the material to be embossed from the mat. I will do that, but I'm going to go next. And now we're going to cut this template. So let me go ahead and load the template material. Now that my template material is adhered to the mat, I'm going to go ahead and load it in and follow the rest of the instructions on the screen. So I want to save this design, and we can save it into the machine. And now I know that it's saved at the correct size that we went through trying to do. And I say okay. And once I've saved it, I'm going to say okay again. And then I have already put a template sheet on the mat and set it into the machine. Now we need to lay out the template pattern within this, well, you can see within the attached template sheet. Since I have used an entire sheet, I don't need to do anything. But if I only had, like, let's say half of a sheet left over, because after this, for instance, I only have half, I would scan it in, I can turn it 90 degrees, I can adjust it, but this is obviously going to fit because I have an entire template sheet. If I'm at all worried about it, I can drag it away from the edges or anything like that, but this should be good to go. So I'm going to say okay. And I want to do a test cut because I'm not sure what this material is going to cut at. So I'm going to actually add that test cut. And let us see what our settings should be. Okay, that cut out pretty cleanly. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and press start. And for future reference, my blade is at a 6 and my pressure is at a 3 and my speed is at a 1. So you can see it says finish cutting, unload the mat, and remove the template from the mat. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to go ahead and clean off the mat. But look at my beautiful template. So we've done this, okay. So the next operation is we don't need to cut it again. It worked out great. We're just going to finish creating the template. Is it okay to delete the templates? Yes, it's totally fine. So we've done step 1, check. So step 2 is emboss. Now, if you already have this template, you don't have to do this every time. You create the template once and you can use it over and over and over again. So that's why step 2, emboss, is where we're going now. So yes, it's okay to delete all the editing patterns. Now, fold the template and attach it to the mat with its folded portion along the bottom line of the mat's attaching area, and you can see that here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So now that we've done that, we'll hit next. So put material to be embossed between the folded. So you can see that you need to leave 1/8 of an inch down at the bottom. And there are actually marks on the template so that you can see that, but this is just a good reminder. So let's read the rest of this. Between the folded template and determine the position of the patterns. Leave a space of at least 1/8 inch, 3 millimeters between the material and the folded portion. So now let's go ahead and do that. You can see, or can you barely see, the reflection's kind of bad, but there are some lines that have been cut here, some dash lines, so that you know where that mark is, and they're on this side too, so I can actually see them here. And I can go ahead now and arrange it so that there is at least that much there, and then fold this up. Now I could center this. In fact, I probably should center this. That would probably be a good idea, but you can place it anywhere to the left and the right that it will fit on the mat in the sticky area. So I've gone ahead and done that. I'm folding up my template. You can see that it's also not centered left to right. So it says at least, meaning I can leave more than that. So I can actually pull this up and I can see where this is going to emboss. So I can actually put it all the way up here if I want, so that the design is more centered in this paper, which is exactly what I want. And now we can move on. So unfold the template and fix the material to be embossed with masking tape as needed, then fold the template again. So you just want to make sure that it's really well adhered to the mat and it's not going to move. So let me go ahead and do that. So now this is completely held. You can see that right there. So now I'm going to hit next. Cut the scanning support sheet large enough to cover the template. So we're going to hit next. And then it says cover the template with a scanning support sheet and set it to the machine. After the machine is set up, press the start stop button. This is the support sheet, and you know it by the sticker right there in the back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of guesstimate here. It has to be big enough to cover it. So about half of that. Okay, that looks right. So now I'm going to peel it from the backing and place it on top. Now let's load it into the machine. You can see that it's scanned and everything. I'm catching the grid lines, the tape that I use, so I need to frame the image to be embossed. So I'm just going ahead and grabbing a hold of what's right there, and now I've framed it, and I'm going to say preview. So it looks good to me, so I'm going to say okay. Once you're okay to emboss, you're going to say okay. And it says, without unloading the mat, remove the scanning support sheet and unfold the template. And then you can emboss. So let's do that. So you'll notice I haven't unloaded the mat. I'm just gently removing the support sheet, which is also flipping open the template. And I can put this back onto this green sheet and I can use it again for any template that size. So once this is done, the other thing I need to do is I need to put in my embossing tool. So there are two different tip sizes. I'm using the 1.5 millimeter. And again, if you want to learn more about embossing and how to put together the embossing tool, be sure to check out my video on embossing with the ScanNCut. I'm going to remove the blade, drop in the embossing tool. Then on the screen, I will hit emboss. It asks me to select which tool I'm using. As I said, I'm using the 1.5 millimeter, so that's fine. I'm going to say okay and start. Our embossing is done, so I am unloading the mat, and then I'll simply pull this off. This template is reusable multiple times, as often as you would like. You'd make it once and you just reuse it over and over, but let's look at the embossing. So this is the debossed side, the side that it's pushed into. And this is the embossed side. And you can see that with region embossing, you really see the depth. It really comes out nicely. So whether you want it to be embossed or debossed. But now it's time to turn this into a card. I decided to trim this down because I didn't like all the excess paper. So when I trimmed it down to be around the design, it ended up being about 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. So because of that, I took a piece of black cardstock, and this is 10 by 5, so that this makes a 5 by 5 card, which this 4 3/4 by 4 3/4 piece of embossed paper fits perfectly on it, which is awesome. So I'm just going to adhere that down. I have a scrap of this paper, and I'm going to put my sentiment on here. So I'm going to be using stamps. You could use absolutely anything you wanted. You could use handwriting, you could use type it in, whatever you want, but I'm just going to stamp it. So now that I have my sentiment stamped, I want to put it onto my card. Now, I could have absolutely stamped directly on here if I wanted, no problem at all. But I felt like I wanted this to have a little bit of dimension, so I actually have some foam adhesive to pop it up. But a square just seems so boring. I'm here at my ScanNCut, and I've loaded on my stamped image. From the home screen, I'm going to choose Pattern, the shapes. I'm looking for the heart. Oh, I think I went past it. There it is. And now I want to say, it's probably way too big, but I'm going to say set, and let's scan in our paper. So now I can see that it's way too big, so let me reduce the size. And I can even zoom in. Looks good to me. So I'm going to say okay, okay again. I can add a test cut if I want, or not if I don't. If I've already tested, and I can say okay, cut, and start. I have my heart, and it is ready to take over and put on the card. I want this to be slightly dimensional, so I'm going to put the foam adhesive on the back. So I put a lot of foam adhesive on there because if this is going through the mail, I want it to remain dimensional when it goes to the person. Now I'm just thinking where to put it. I kind of like it up here in this empty space. So I'm just going to push down my foam adhesive. And now you can see my beautiful card is ready to get addressed. It's got this embossing. I like the tone on tone with the sentiment. It's really, really lovely. You could have embossed the sentiment too. That would be really cute. Thanks so much for watching. For more tips, tricks, and tutorials, be sure to visit my blog at balzerdesigns.typepad.com, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and of course, don't forget about the ScanNCut website at scanncut.com.